Hi, it's Miss Mason reading Counting by Sevens by Holly Goldberg Sloan. Today we'll be reading chapters 34 through chapter 37. Chapter 34. Is there a more personal piece of clothing than someone's underwear? I don't think so. Del wears all different styles. He has a great variety of colors and a shocking number of patterns. He is heavy on the cartoon characters and images of vegetables. It is truly disturbing that I now know this. This man is not just my counselor, he's also supposedly monitoring my schoolwork, although in 5 weeks that has never once come up. I can't believe we don't just leave his privates in the closet, but Patty is all about doing things the right way, even if that means getting involved in someone's obsessive-compulsive underwear disorder. It takes us 3 trips to haul the mountain down to the laundry room. After we get the first load started, Patty morphs into some kind of human tornado. Earlier, I realized, she was just some kind of tropical storm. By the time Del and Quang Ha come up the stairs carrying the box of kitchen stuff, we have mopped the floor, which turns out to be shades of orange, not brown, cleaned the microwave and all of the counters, and filled 8 trash bags with more detritus. I know a lot about bacteria and germs, so this is all very challenging for me. Del has barely finished bringing up the stuff from the garage when Patty hands him another list and shoves him back out the door. Quang Ha stays with us. Everything in Del's apartment looks gray. This is because someone put a canvas tarp over the skylight in the living room, probably to cut down on air conditioning costs or something. Now that tarp is coated in atmospheric dirt. Mold and mildew stains rim the edges where water must collect. So when you're in Del's living room, no matter what the weather is outside, overhead it appears that a Cat 5 hurricane has just descended. Patty has her hands on her hips, and she's squinting up at the covered skylight. She says, "It's not right." The look on Patty's face isn't good. I stare up with her. It's like a giant dirty diaper is on the ceiling. She calls for Quang Ha, who has just been given a large plastic bag of wine and beer bottles, found under the bathroom sink, to take downstairs. Patty points skyward. "I want you to go up onto the roof and take off the tarp." In a month, I've never seen Quang Ha happy, so his current scowl is just more of the same. He says, "You just told me to throw away these bottles." Patty says, "Do both." I feel bad for him and offer, "I'll help." Quang Ha doesn't want my assistance, but his standard operating procedure is to ignore me, completely, and I'm okay with that. Now he grabs the heavy bag and heads to the door. I follow. We are both in the hallway and he's lugging the bag of bottles. He should leave them if he's going to go up on the roof, but he doesn't. I don't say anything, because he's older and can't stand me, and also because I rarely talk now. He's only here cleaning up Del's because of me and my problems. There's a stairwell at the end of the corridor, and a sign indicates that it leads to the roof. I wish that Quang Ha would put down the bag of bottles. I think he's trying to prove something to me, like maybe the big bag isn't too heavy for him, but I know that it is. I've lifted more things today than I have in the last 6 months. Quang Ha goes right up the narrow steps. There's a door at the top with a sign that says, "Roof access for maintenance workers only." I don't think we qualify, but Quang Ha just pushes the door open anyway. The sun is sinking, but outside it is still bright. There are 10 skylights and 10 dirty old tarps, so Del isn't the only one with interior shades of gray. I can see that Quang Ha is confused. I point to the left side of the building. Over there. The third one is his living room. He isn't going to argue with me, because after a month of living together, he knows I really only talk to state facts. Quang Ha still has the garbage bag as he moves across the hot roof. Again, I follow him. I'm not sure why. I'm his little kid shadow, and I can see that I'm only making everything worse. There are bricks that hold down the corners of the tarps, and when we reach what is Del's unit, I lift one. Quang Ha then bends over and with his free hand pulls on the dirty canvas. But the trash bag slips from his other hand, and the bottles spill out and one crashes right at his feet. Green glass shards go flying, and several pieces land on the clear plastic of the newly uncovered skylight. The old me would have screamed from the crash. The new me expects these kinds of things. The new me is actually surprised that we weren't cut up by the airborne shards. Quang Ha was angry before. Now he's really angry. He starts to pick up the broken glass. I move quickly to help. Standing over the skylight, I see that 3 glass pieces have caught the sun. They send small spots of color down into the room below. I glance over at Kwang Ha. He sees it too. I say, it's like a stained glass window. Kwang Ha is silent, but he takes a beer bottle and breaks it. He then positions a piece of amber glass on the surface. A chunk of orange-brown light now hits the carpet below in Dell's place. We exchange looks, but we don't say anything. Then we go to work covering the entire skylight. We end up breaking all the bottles to get enough glass pieces. I find this to be strangely enjoyable. I can tell Kwang Ha feels the same way, even though he is silent while we smash what appears to be the result of a real drinking problem. When we finally finish, we go downstairs. Kwang Ha opens the apartment door and we both can see right away that the room has taken on a totally different quality. The light. Chunks of green and amber filter down from above. What was an ordinary and soulless feature is suddenly interesting. We're standing there staring up at what we've done when Patty comes in. I don't want her to be mad, especially at Kwang Ha. I say, it's temporary. I'm surprised when Patty only says, Kwang Ha, you can arrange the furniture if you've a better idea how it should go. I'm not surprised when he does. Kwang Ha puts everything in a different place, setting the couch and the chairs on an angle. He doesn't follow the lines of the rectangle room, he makes his own shapes. And when he's done, I want to say, there is a qualitative difference in the visual effect of the room. But instead I say, the room looks better. Kwang Ha just shrugs, but I can see he's not scowling anymore. This is the first thing we've done together, and I realize that it feels strange, for both of us. And I'm forced to admit that being in a room with a teenage boy who appreciates the effect of shattered glass slices of color makes me feel better about the world. Chapter 35. Dell pulled his name out of the mail slot for number 28, replacing it with a slip of paper on which Kwang Ha had artfully written Nguyen. He then made a beeline for his car, driving away just moments before Lenore Cole pulled up to the curb. He headed straight for the closest bar, which was called the Hammer. Most people in Bakersfield went to the Hammer when they crashed their car, or lost electricity in a heat wave, and had all of their ice cream melt. The bar was a misery magnet. No one put on their best sweater or their skinny jeans to go to the Hammer. That's why Dell felt at home there. Now, as he drove into the parking lot, he let out a sigh of relief. He'd gotten away from Patty Nguyen. Dell found himself mumbling out loud as he opened the car door. Who died and put her in charge? Then he remembered that two people actually had passed away. And maybe he was the one who had inadvertently put Patty Nguyen in charge by getting her pushy daughter involved. All Dell really knew with certainty was that now someone was steaming mounds of spinach in a kitchen that had never under his watch seen a vegetable in its raw form. At least his underwear wall was being washed. Once inside the dimly lit bar, Dell found a seat. As he leaned forward onto the sticky countertop, he took a pen from his pocket and slid the thin cocktail napkin closer. He was looking to regain control, and so he returned to the Del Duke system of the strange. He wrote, 1 equals misfit, 2 equals oddball, 3 equals lone wolf, 4 equals weirdo, 5 equals genius. And then he added his newest category, 6 equals dictator. Mai had to take a second city bus across town to the gardens of Glenwood, and she was not happy about it. She called her mother from the salon, and that was when she found out about the visit from Child Services. Shouldn't someone have told her what was going on? Now, an hour later, Mai's arms ached from carrying her heavy backpack, but inside she felt a different pain. She had to question the logic of pretending to live in Del Duke's apartment. Maybe Willow should have gone right after the accident into foster care. Her mother had made it clear. They weren't in any position to take on another kid. She had tried to help, but what if what she had done ended up hurting Willow even more? Mai aimed her right shoe, which wasn't more than a satin slipper, and stepped down hard on an acorn. But the nut lying in the middle of the cracked sidewalk didn't squish under her foot. Instead, it was solid and tough, and it hurt. It was like stepping on a pointy rock. Mai felt her whole body stiffen. So many things caused unexpected pain. Mai kicked the acorn, and it flew across the sidewalk out into the street. She watched as a passing car ran right over the still green nut. I moved to the curb to get a better look. The acorn hadn't flattened. It rested on its side in the middle of the road, unharmed. Mai dropped her backpack and went to retrieve it. The acorn was a survivor. Mai stuffed it into her pocket. Lucky. That's what the nut was. When Willow wasn't paying attention, Mai would slip it someplace she would find it. Chapter 36. I'm exhausted. I'd helped transform the apartment of a single lazy Horton hermit into a family's living space, and this has been done insanely fast. Now as the bamboo steamer gets going, and Patty has me chopping up green onions, the buzzer rings. Lenore Cole is downstairs. Once a week since the accident, I've gone out to Jameson. I've had a complete physical exam. I've had 3 sit-downs with a psychiatrist, Dr. Ron McDevitt, and I've seen Lenore Cole twice. There's been talk of permanent placement in foster care, but it's not easy finding spots for older kids. I met a girl in the bathroom during my visit last Thursday who said that once your baby teeth fall out, no one wants you. She also told me that prospective parents always pick the blonde kids first. I don't think that she was trying to be a bully or anything. We both had hair the color of ink. The social worker isn't with us long, which is a good thing. I guess we passed the test. Patty's not trying to be a foster parent, but still they have requirements, even for the temporary custody people. In the hallway, Lenore Cole says, "We will find the right place for you. That's our mission." I don't answer. I want to see this lady out the front door and into her car and off the street and out of town and then removed from the county and then the whole state and finally relocated to the place they call Tornado Alley in Kansas. But it's not her fault. I'm the problem. Maybe there are all kinds of available foster homes in Kansas. I'm in the shadows of the entryway watching as the social worker gets into her car and pulls away from the curb. She drives right by Mai. Just seeing the graceful teenager changes everything for me. When I tell her we have a pretend room complete with Ch35 bunk beds, she rotates in her shell. She doesn't have an actual shell, of course, but whatever hard casing that protects her from life literally shifts before my eyes. Apparently she's long wanted to climb a metal ladder before she goes to sleep. Maybe it's from years of sleeping on the floor. I don't want to disappoint her by saying all of this was just for show, so they wouldn't haul me away. Once in the apartment, I thank Patty for everything she did today. To my great relief, she's finally sitting down. The world's ultimate pragmatist shrugs and says, "Ning ji ming mong, ikai now no x-ray. Nung ji ming kong, moan tai no lai kuden." This translates to mean, what we expect rarely occurs. What we don't expect is what happens. I reach over and take Patty's hand. I'm surprised as I do this. I'm too old to be acting this way, but I can't stop myself. I manage to say, "It's not a scientific way to view event sequence, but given what's gone on in my life, I completely understand. It's the most I've been able to communicate in a long time. And I'm not sure if I'm just tired, or if something has changed, but as I look at her, with my hand in hers, I smile. My teeth don't even stick to my lips, and Patty doesn't turn away. Everyone is really hungry, even me, and I never have an appetite anymore. Patty tries to reach Dell, but he doesn't answer his cell phone, so we have dinner without him. Then what's especially strange is that suddenly it feels as if we all really do live in the gardens of Glenwood. We eat our food at the red linoleum top table and toss the paper plates, Dell doesn't have real ones, in the trash. Patty has Kwang Ha immediately take down the garbage to the dumpster because the kitchen is a trash-free zone now. We all help clean up and put away the leftovers, and then we make ourselves at home on the newly acquired used furniture. I can't believe that she has the energy, but Patty starts to fold Dell's mountain of clean underwear into tight, compressed squares. They look like they've come out of some kind of vending machine. That's how precise she is. Kwang Ha is in love with Dell's large TV, and he finds a program where Japanese soccer players use their heads to smash clay pots. We all watch. It is strangely addicting. I know that these blows to the skull can cause long-term health issues of a very serious nature. But right now it seems that the last thing I should be worried about, so I let it go. For a brief moment, because everything in this room is so different, I forget that I don't have a mother or a father or a place to call home. I lean back on the sofa. and I feel a sharp pain in my right hip. When I put my hand there, I realize that I'm sitting on a small green acorn. I have no idea how it got on the couch. Apples grow on apple trees, and cherries grow on cherry trees. But we don't say that an acorn grows on an acorn tree. Things like that are interesting, at least to some people. I hold the little nut, which is by definition a fruit, in the palm of my hand. Mai is next to me, and she smiles as she says, "Maybe that's a lucky acorn." I slip it into my pocket, because maybe she's right. It is a seed, after all, and they are by definition the beginning of something. I then rest my head on the back of the sofa, and even though my eyes are all watery, I can make out the full moon as a fuzzy amber and green lollipop on the other end of the skylight. And that's not a bad thing. Chapter 37. It was late when Del finally stumbled into his apartment. He literally didn't recognize the place, and not just because Patty was asleep on the new Salvation Army couch, and Quang Ha was sprawled out on the carpet nearby under a red blanket. Del shut the door and moved into the hallway. Willow and Mai could be sleeping in the second bedroom in the Semper Fi bunk beds. He wondered why they hadn't all gone home, and then he remembered they didn't have a car, and right now neither did he. He'd walked home. After staring in wonder at all the changes, he finally made it to his room, where his bed was made up with Patty's sheets and a fluffy comforter. Del planted himself face first on top of the mattress, and that's where he was only 5 hours later when the sound of the shower in the bathroom woke him up. It was not a normal noise. He'd never heard running water in his own apartment. Del opened his eyes and realized the sound was from the bathroom. He squinted at the digital eyes of his bedside clock and saw 5:21 a.m. Who would get up this early? It was one of them, and he had a good idea which one. Del would have given his left foot for another hour of uninterrupted sleep. He shut his eyes and suddenly saw himself minus everything below the ankle on his weaker side. That made him wonder if the injury meant he'd collect some kind of disability payment from the school district. He used his right foot to drive, and most people did, so he guessed the left foot didn't bring in as much cash in a settlement. Isn't that the way the insurance companies worked? Everything had some kind of predetermined price? Maybe it was better to give up a left arm. And then there was a knock on the door, and the Del Duke internal idiotic discussion forum was interrupted by the voice of Patty Nguyen. "Are you awake?" He wanted to say he was now. Instead he answered, "Been up for hours." He hoped it sounded deeply sarcastic, but she answered, "Me too." Patty pushed the door open and entered talking. "Social services is coming back next week. Until they find a permanent place for Willow, I think it would be easier if we just stayed here. I can't keep cleaning up after you." Del was silent, not because he didn't have an opinion, but because he didn't have the energy this early in the morning to scream at the top of his lungs. Patty forged on. "I saw a notice on the board in the laundry room. Unit 22, just down the hall, looking for a roommate." Del shut his eyes. This had to be a dream. Except that in his dreams, usually he was hiding, and often his body had mysteriously been painted bright blue. Del opened his eyes. Patty was already heading to the door. "I'm going to get the email address. It's not too early for you to send a message saying you're interested. It's temporary, just until we get this all straightened out." Del had seen Sadhu in the parking garage, but they had never even as much as said hello. Now, at the insane hour of the morning, he was sitting across from the man. The crazy Nguyen woman had insisted that he send an email right away, and then to his horror, his laptop showed an immediate reply. The guy who was just down the hall wanted him to come over right away and meet. Shouldn't the man be asleep? What was wrong with all these people? Sadhu cleared his throat and said, "I'm a vegetarian." Del nodded. Sadhu looked suddenly hopeful. "Are you a vegetarian too?" Del shook his head. He wasn't going to lie, but he also wasn't going to go into detail about his meatloaf obsession. Because Del was so tired, he looked appealingly like someone who had been to mime school, or at the very least, believed strongly in the power of nonverbal communication. His answers were a series of head movements, punctuated by yawning, raised eyebrows, and semi-swallowed hiccups. And that is why he was approved as a roommate. Minutes after he took his seat, Patty Nguyen came down the hall and wrote Sadhu Kumar a check for 1 month's rent for the second bedroom in Unit 22 in the apartment complex where Dell already rented Unit 28. She would cover his expenses living with Sadhu, and Dell would continue to make the payment on his place. As he shook hands on the deal, Dell found enough of a voice to make a statement. He said, "Spicy food gives me indigestion." Sadhu nodded his head as if he understood, but Dell felt certain the guy was pickling peppers on his stovetop.